So we will go ahead and get started as people continue to trickle in. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to be here to share the results of our national study on farmers' digital engagement in Nigeria. My name is Ellie Turner, and I'm the head of agriculture for 60 Decibels. We have a really great group of speakers today. So before we dive into the presentation and the content, I'm going to ask each speaker to just quickly introduce yourself and your organization so everyone knows who's here, and then we'll get into it. So Hanadi, maybe you want to just go to the next slide and then we'll go in order. I have already gone. So Hannah, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, happy to. Hi, everyone. I'm Hannah Reed. I'm a senior officer for Insights and Learning on the agricultural development team at the Gates Foundation, and I'm based in the US.
Hi, everyone. My name is Hanadi Al-Saidi. I'm a team lead at 60 Decibels on the agriculture team, and I've had the privilege of working on this project from its inception, so I'm really excited to share the insights today.
Awesome. We'll just go in order here. So Quinta.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Quinta Onditi, and I lead partnerships at Hello Tractor. I'm based at our Nairobi office.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. My name is Ufuoma Emonena. I'm the partnerships manager for Hello Tractor Nigeria, and I'm based in our Nigeria office.
Hi, everybody. Andrew Lala, CEO of Ignitia. We use AI to improve weather forecasts and build solutions that help people build resilience to climate change. Very eager to dive into this session, and thank you all for joining.
Awesome. Thanks to all the speakers for joining. We're excited about this, and to all the participants. We're above 50 now, so thanks so much. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we kick off. So the first thing is, you'll see at the bottom, there are two different chat boxes. One of them says chat and one says Q&A. If you have questions for the speakers, put them in the Q&A box. That makes sure that we will see them and get to them at the end. You can put them in any time during the session. We're going to have a whole designated Q&A portion at the end where we respond to that. In the chat box, it says chat. Keep doing exactly what you're doing. Introduce yourself, comment. Feel free to use it in any way, but speaker questions should go in the Q&A. The other thing is that we're recording the session, just so everybody knows. You should have also gotten an alert through Zoom, and we're going to share the recording with everyone and also publicly after the session. So let me just quickly walk you through what you can expect from the next hour. So Hannah and I are going to start with a bit of background on 60 Decibels and the motivation for the research to set the context. Then Hanadi is going to introduce the research and spend about 15 minutes presenting some of the high-level findings from our study in Nigeria. It was a really big study. There's a lot of data, so we've just pulled out some of the most interesting insights to share with you today, but we will send you the full report after. And then we're going to have the three panelists sharing their experience scaling their tech companies in Nigeria. And then, of course, we'll leave time for you to ask questions and for them to respond to your questions at the end. So Hanadi, I think you can turn off the slides just while we do the background, so people can see our faces. And I hope that most of you already know 60 Decibels, but in case you don't, I'll just give a super brief introduction. 60 Decibels is a social impact measurement company. Our methodology, called Lean Data, was really designed for impact-oriented startups in emerging markets. We use remote phone interviews to conduct brief surveys with end users like smallholder farmers and turn those conversations into impact data. The name of the company, 60 Decibels, is the volume of human conversation, because we believe that to measure social impact, you need to listen to the people on whom you're aiming to have that impact. And our methodology is really just a way to listen to people at scale. And for the past, part of our mission is to make impact measurement easier and more accessible, all while respecting the time of the farmer who probably has better things to do than respond to interviews. So we're always testing and innovating new and lean approaches to data collection. And one of those has been this partnership that we've had for the last 3 years. We've had the pleasure of working with the Gates Foundation and the Busara Center for Behavioral Economics to develop and test lean methodologies to measure the use and impact of digital farmer services. So I'm going to hand it back over to Hannah to share just a bit more about the motivation for this piece of research.
All right, thanks, Ellie. And thanks everyone for joining today. As I mentioned, I'm a senior officer on the agricultural development team, and where for the past 4 years, I've managed the digital farmer services team's work on evidence and learning. So our portfolio around measurement and filling evidence gaps. And I'm excited to kick off the conversation today by, as Ellie said, introducing the motivation behind the research and why we decided to fund this. So anyone familiar with this space knows that there's a fair amount of research and data on the supply side of digital farmer services or digital agricultural services. What I mean by that is we know what services are available, how many products are being designed, how providers operate, and there are some piecemeal insights into the impact of specific digital solutions. One of the early pieces of research that really motivated us to fund this study was the 2019 Digitization of African Agriculture report by CTA and Dahlberg. This was one of the first reports that really shed light into the ag tech sector in Africa. It's hard to believe that was almost 6 years ago. This report included estimates on the number of solutions, so the number of ag tech solutions in Africa, and the number of farmers that were being reached by those solutions. However, those estimates were based on supply side data, meaning registration rates from providers. It did not include any estimates of farmers, data from farmers' perspectives on their experience with those solutions. And while this report was an important first step in terms of understanding market penetration of these services, as the Gates Foundation, we're really focused on improving the lives and livelihoods of farmers. And we wanted to better understand the demand side. What were farmers' experiences with these services? Were they even aware of them? Did the solutions meet their needs? Did they use them? If so, what value did they provide? And if not, what were the barriers? So to address this gap, we partnered with 60 Decibels and Busara to get for the first time this population level view of digital farmer service usage in Nigeria from the farmer's perspective. So this was leveraging the methodology that Ellie mentioned, where they actually went and talked to farmers directly. So looking beyond what's just available in the marketplace to actually what's being used, by whom, and why. So this research really lays the foundation for continued measurement and learning, not just for tracking adoption over time, but to identify opportunities to improve services and make them more effective and accessible for the communities we aim to support. So I'm really excited about this opportunity for the team to share these insights with all of us today. Before I hand it back over to Ellie, I just want to say a big thank you to the research team, 60 Decibels and Busara, all of the experts who guided this work, but especially the farmers who took the time to share their experience with us. So back over to you, Ellie.
Thanks, Hannah. So just one more quick note before we kick it off. As Hannah shared, we've been partnering to develop this methodology, and we pilot tested it in 2 geographies. So we piloted it first in Kenya and also in Nigeria. You may have seen the report, the results from the Kenya study, which we released last year. But today's going to focus on Nigeria, and we're so excited about the Nigeria study because we did this one in collaboration with the World Bank LSMS team and their National Nigeria Survey. And if you aren't familiar, this is the National In-Depth Agricultural Household Survey that the World Bank supports in a lot of different countries. And we tested it because it represents what we think will be the most scalable way to collect this data on digital engagement in the future, that is incorporating it into existing national surveys. So Hanadi will walk you through exactly what we did and how, but I just wanted to share that point that in collaboration with LSMS was so important, and then Nigerian Bureau of Statistics on this, because we really do see and hope that these metrics can be incorporated into national ag household surveys in the future. So enough preamble, let's get to the findings. Hanadi, you can pull this slide back up and take it away.
Thanks, Ellie and Hannah. Everyone can see my screen?
Yeah, you're good.
Great. Thanks. Okay, really excited to dive in. So to start, I want to explain how we defined digital farmer service. You'll see maybe throughout the presentation that we reference DFS. That's what we're referencing, digital farmer services in the research. And so we looked at kind of two main channels. So we focused on services accessed either directly by farmers using their own mobile phones or indirectly through agents equipped with digital devices like phones, laptops, tablets, etc. We looked at 5 different types of agricultural services. So we examined digital offerings across information, inputs, market services, credit, and insurance. We also wanted to ensure that there was institutional presence. So to be considered a digital service, it needed to be backed by an organization, whether a private company, government body, or civil society group, rather than just peer-to-peer messages like simple WhatsApp chats between farmers. And then finally, there needed to be digitization of key tasks. So at least one part of the service needed to involve a digital process, not necessarily the entire service, but a key component of how the service is accessed or delivered had to be digitized. So like Ellie said, over the next 15 minutes, I'll take you through some of the high-level lessons that we learned from the Nigerian farmers that we spoke to, but please have a look at the report. There's definitely more in-depth detail there. So here's a brief overview of our research. So we surveyed 1,374 crop and livestock farmers in Nigeria. As Ellie mentioned, we did this through a partnership with the National Bureau of Statistics in Nigeria and the World Bank Living Standards Measurement Team. This is a nationally representative panel drawn from the LSMS Integrated Agriculture Study. The average farmers had less than half a hectare of land, planted maize and cassava, and also kept livestock. 44% of our sample were women. The data was focused on farmers' use of digital solutions during the 2023-24 main agricultural season. And so we collected data in 4 rounds. So the first was in January 2023 to get profile data, then just after planting between August and October 2023, again after harvest in January and February 2024, and then finally after selling between March and April 2024. Some of these rounds of data collection were done in person and some were done over the phone. The farmers included in the study were those who could be reached and interviewed by mobile phone, but when we compared kind of the demographics of this group to the overall LSMS panel, the 2 groups were comparable. So let's get into the insights. So first is overall use of digital agricultural services. So we found that 2 in 5 Nigerian farmers report using a digital tool at least once during the 2023-24 main agricultural season. This can be any of the 5 services that I mentioned before and at any point during the season. As Ellie mentioned, we did a similar pilot in Kenya during the same period, the 2023-24 Masika season, and found that usage was slightly higher, so 56%. However, the distribution of usage looked very different in Kenya, which we'll get into shortly. So the first insight, information and advisory services are the most commonly used digital farming solution. This was not a surprise to us when we were doing the research. So 35% of farmers report using digital information at least one point during the season. The next most common is input and equipment services. So nearly 1 in 5 Nigerian farmers use digital tools to access farm inputs or equipment. You'll see on the kind of gray bar that only about half of the farmers reported purchasing or renting inputs or equipment at any point during the season, whether digitally or non-digitally, which was definitely lower than we expected. And so we wanted to kind of understand why we're seeing this trend. And so we spoke to a few experts to help contextualize this. And what we heard is there are several solutions out there, including government programs that provide inputs and equipment directly to farmers, often at no cost. So this might explain why we're not seeing as many direct purchases. It's definitely something for the sector to keep in mind and explore more when designing solutions, especially when thinking about demand and uptake. Number 3 is that most Nigerian farmers do not use digital solutions to sell their produce, and we'll dig a little bit more into this shortly. And then the 4th is, unsurprisingly, few farmers in our sample reported using insurance or credit for their farms. Insurance is not shown in this chart because none of the farmers that we spoke to mentioned having it, but based on discussions with experts, this may reflect a lack of awareness. Some insurance products may be labeled differently or embedded within other services, which makes them kind of difficult to recognize for farmers. But we explored this in the report, and we'll explore credit usage in more detail shortly. So I'd love to spend a little bit of time on these now, especially the first one. So let's take a closer look at digital information and advisory. So we found that farmers do not use digital information consistently throughout the season. So most users are using information DFS during planting, and usage sharply drops during the harvesting and selling phase. So 9% at harvesting, 6% at selling. In fact, less than 5% of farmers use information and advisory at all 3 points in the season. So that means that most DFS usage overall is happening during the planting phase in Nigeria. They're using kind of similar information at these 3 points in the season, so mainly around crop management and input recommendations. Again, when we did the study in Kenya, we saw different trends. So slightly less than 20% of farmers were using digital services during planting, with a slight increase at the time of harvest. And then the biggest jump came during the selling period. So that's when we saw a sharp increase in usage, mainly to access price and market information. Most farmers are using their own mobile phones to access information rather than working through digitized agents. So based on discussions with experts, again, to try to contextualize this data, the finding is not surprising. So the agent network in Nigeria is not as widespread as it is in other geographies like Kenya. And so an area that could be explored is expanding access to DFS through digitized agents to increase uptake and engagement. Digital information was most commonly used as a standalone service instead of bundling. So of the 35% of farmers who said that they used a digital service during this period, only 14% bundled it with at least one other service from the same provider. The most common bundle was information with inputs provided. Again, just for point of comparison, this was higher in Kenya. So you saw just slightly more than half of farmers were saying that they were receiving bundled offerings. Satisfaction with information services is low. So we're seeing that there's a net promoter score of -34 during the planting season, -39 during the harvesting season. Only 20% of the farmers that we spoke to are promoters, meaning that they would recommend the service to other farmers, which indicates that farmers are not kind of fully satisfied with the services. Farmers are also saying that digital information is not covering kind of all their information needs, and only 5% feel that the services are timely. Andrew's going to spend a little bit of time on this in a little bit to contextualize some of this data. But what this means is that few farmers are actually getting real value from using these services, which is limiting their potential future use. So less than 20% said that they would be disappointed if they could no longer use the service in the future. You'll see the phrase meaningful users on this slide. So one of our goals in the study was to create an easy to collect standardized way to measure adoption of digital services across different service types. So moving beyond kind of traditional metrics like active use and other operational indicators. We have more details of this approach on our website and the microsite that Ellie will share kind of at the end of the presentation. But overall, we found that 2% of farmers in Nigeria are meaningful users of information DFS. So this represents 6% of users. I should note that all of these figures are at a national level and aren't tied to any kind of specific service. We know that there are many excellent services available in Nigeria, 2 of which we're going to hear from shortly. But that said, we did find something promising. So 3 in 5 users were more comfortable using digital tools for farming because of their use of the digital information provider, which suggests that using information DFS could pave way for future adoption of other digital services. Okay, so that's it on information. Because DFS usage for the other services was much lower than information and advisory, we didn't slice and dice the data too much, but each of these has a full section in the report, and we'll share just high-level insights from each right now. So for input services, similar to information, most input DFS users are direct users. Digitization is mainly used for getting input recommendations and seller information, and is less common for placing orders directly or accessing credit for inputs. For market access DFS, only about 4% of farmers used a market access DFS, and about 60% sold to traditional buyers in person. What was interesting about market access is that those who did use these services report really positive experiences. So 35% qualify as meaningful users, genuinely deriving value from these services. 1/3 say all of their needs were fully met by the DFS, and half report that digital services have made their selling experience much easier. This suggests that there is potential to increase benefits for farmers by both expanding the reach or numbers of services offered and raising awareness. We found that 78% of farmers say that they have never heard of these like market access, digital market solutions. And then finally on financial services. So use of financial services is low. A quarter of farmers report getting credit to support their farm, but only 5% do so digitally. Of these 5% of users, half are getting credit via kind of a bundled offering, and then half are accessing these services on their own mobile phone. So you have a little bit more of agent facilitation. Okay, one of the key questions that we aim to understand from this research was who is actually using these digital services. We answered this in more depth in the report, but here are kind of two things that stood out to us. So we didn't find any significant differences in usage by gender or by the type of phone owned, so smartphone ownership. It is worth pausing on the gender finding for a moment. So our sample includes both men and women who have access to a mobile phone, given that for some interviews they were done via phone. We did look into this, whether we might be missing some differences due to differences in mobile phone access by gender. We looked at the LSMS Nigeria household survey that was the sample was drawn from, and didn't see actually any major differences in access to mobile phones that could explain this lack of difference, I suppose. But what we did find was that younger farmers, so those under 35, are more likely to engage with digital services than older farmers. And that trend kind of holds true across most types of services. We also didn't find any differences in digital farmer usage based on commercialization. So we dug a bit deeper into understanding why, as we expected that we would see kind of more uptake in usage for commercialized farmers and less for subsistence farmers. Among the farmers who were aware of DFS but did not use them, the most common reasons were limited connectivity, cost, and discomfort with using digital tools. What was interesting is that these barriers were consistent across farmer types, so from subsistence to commercialized. We also looked into whether they had alternate options for these services, and very few mentioned that they had alternate solutions, and that was the reason that they weren't using them, and this held true across the different groups. This suggests that the lack of variation in usage may come down to shared infrastructure barriers, so things like network access or affordability that affect everyone regardless of their level of commercialization. And we'll take a look at these kind of reasons for overall non-usage in just 1 second. The final set of insights I'm going to cover will focus on non-users. So 60% of farmers who did not use DFS at all during the season. 25% of all farmers are not even aware of digital solutions, and another 23% know that they exist, but say that they don't have access to them. So that means that about half of Nigerian farmers do not have access or awareness of digital farming services. I previously presented this data kind of segmented by commercialization of farmers, but here is the overall view by service type. So among those who are aware of DFS providers, so the lack of awareness is not the reason that they aren't using them. The biggest barrier to use is cost, followed by infrastructure challenges and digital literacy. Additionally, 1 in 5 farmers feel they don't need these services at all, mainly for information and market access. So that was just a quick tour of the data. Please spend some time in the report in the dashboard, and I'll hand back to Ellie.
Thanks, Hanadi. So just sort of quickly to summarize, we've seen that while digital services are reaching some farmers in Nigeria, there are still a lot of barriers to consistent use and to that deeper engagement and meaningful use, right? And there's a clear opportunity to improve service offerings and awareness, enhance accessibility, and tackle some of these connectivity issues and financial barriers. Hanadi has mentioned a couple times our website, where we have all of this information, as well as all the other research that we've done through this partnership, which is expansive, and we haven't talked about all of it today, but it's there. So please go, busara.60decibels.com. You can also access all of the Nigeria data in a dashboard. So you can play with it, slice and dice it however you want. And we really, really hope that you will do this. We want it to be useful for decision makers. We will also share the link in our follow-up email. So now we're going to turn to our panelists, who I know everyone's very excited to hear from, to get their reflections on some of these insights and how their companies are overcoming the barriers. So I'm going to start with you, Andrew. Ignitia is what we would have categorized as an information DFS. So you provide farmers with weather-informed advisory on a mobile phone. I'd love to get your reaction to two of the insights that Hanadi shared. So the first is digital information is the use is highest in the planting season, and then it really drops off in that harvest and selling season. Does this surprise you? How important is information during the other parts of the season? And what has Ignitia done to encourage consistent use? And then my second question, I'll just give them to you both at once, is around satisfaction. So we see really low farmer satisfaction with digital information services and low meaningful use. Does that surprise you? And how are you thinking about improving farmer satisfaction and the meaningful use of your services? And I think, Hanadi, we can probably pull the slides down so we can see Andrew's face. All right, take it away.
Great.
And let me know if you need me to repeat the questions.
No worries. I got them in front of me. But yeah, the first one, I mean, none of these findings are surprising. We work in close to 24 countries at this point, and Nigeria is one of the hardest places to work. So just looking on the outset, when we are trying to build farmer satisfaction, Nigeria, my message rates when I reach a smallholder farmer fail twice as often as if I was sending from Ghana. It's also twice as expensive for me to reach a Nigerian farmer as it is a Ghana farmer. So there's a lot of issues in me trying to provide a consistent, valuable service. I see there's some of our partners on the call, Heifers here, maybe World Food Program. You know that we try very, very hard to get delivery rates and service quality up. But Nigeria is very difficult from a digital infrastructure perspective, from a consistency perspective, because you have this challenge in delivering the quality service that you would expect. And then you also have the digital literacy side playing where, farmers are not a monolith. There are some farmers that may want to receive their information through digital extension. But let me just put this out there. We just recently completed a survey. When do you think farmers access information for weekly planning? Any takers? Sunday night. So are they going to be sitting with their digital extension service agent after they've completed dinner and they're waiting to plan Monday morning early? No, you need to provide the information to them at the right time, at a high quality, and not just regurgitate information. 80% chance of rain, you throw that out to different farmer segments, they're not going to be able to connect the dots, because 80% may mean intensity, it may mean precipitation, it may mean chance. So the onus for me is on the innovators and the solution providers to listen to the farmers and design better services that go beyond just planting season. If you want better adoption, create a better product so that farmers aren't just saying, okay, I save money when I get the planting date correct. Okay, that's great. They can also save money by reducing agrochemical runoff by getting NPK application correct and urea application correct and storage and harvest date correct. So it's on us to really demonstrate value to these farmers across the planting season rather than just what we see in this short window. And then it kind of gets to the farmer satisfaction, this meaningful use. And I was going back through the study we did all with you all, and I think one of the things we looked at in the Net Promoter Score we got in 2024, which was 71, which is helpful for us to design better products relative to the benchmark of 40. The top thing I looked at was convenience, and the second thing was impact. I think when we look at meaningful use, sometimes providers are designing around technology they wish existed today rather than meeting farmers where they are today. And so we know farmers turn off their phone. They turn off the internet because it's not affordable. So how do I provide a just-in-time service on a real-time weather alert if farmers are turning off their internet to save money? So a lot of it comes down to designing better products that add value and are convenient to farmers, just like we would expect convenience out of any product in our lives, but then also looking at it from the ecosystem, the digital ecosystem. Do we have good digital literacy? Do we have accessible and affordable internet access so that we can provide these more dynamic tools? And so that's just some of the things, some of the ways we think about creating meaningful impact for farmers in Nigeria. But it's a tough spot. It's very tough.
Thanks. I'm gonna ask you two follow-up questions. So one is, you mentioned Nigeria is one of the hardest places to do this, but what's interesting is that if you look at the State of the Sector report for digital agriculture, Nigeria has the most ag tech solutions in it. It's like viewed from the supply side as like a hotbed of ag tech startups. And it's like, we chose it as a country for this research because it sort of has this reputation as like a more mature digital ecosystem. So I'm just wondering if you can comment on that, like juxtaposition of it being so hard to do ag tech in Nigeria, yet we see so much activity happening. Is it just the population situation, or what's driving that?
I would encourage 60 Decibel or any researcher to go into quality of service next.
Okay.
Because when we work in a place like Brazil, oh boy, if we get one forecast wrong or one planting date recommendation wrong, we are punished. Absolutely. And we should be. So in a place, it's night and day operating in a place like Brazil than Nigeria. There may be volume, but again, I would come back to the quality argument. There's a lot of folks, because there's a low barrier entry, copy pasting data and pretending like a farmer is just going to make use of this chance of rain forecast. No. Design better products that help guide behavior around the areas where they can save money. Planting date prediction, input application, harvesting, post-harvest handling. So the more, in my view, the more competition and fierce competition over farmers we can have, and the lower barriers to farmers accessing these digital tools, I think you'd have a much better market system for high impact solutions to take off.
Yeah, it just kind of underscores the point why this data from farmers is so critical, because otherwise we look at the supply side and we think Nigeria is the best place for an ag tech startup. One last question for you before I pivot. We had some questions about smartphones versus feature phones, and you've talked a little bit about meeting farmers where they're at and thinking about their own usage. So could you just explain a little bit about sort of how your service is delivered and how you sort of overcome the smartphone constraint?
Yeah, the range of services, so we iterate on the science and make sure that we're reducing wet season bias, we're optimizing the model for tropics and subtropical agriculture, which means you ignore things like less than X millimeters of rain because it's not really going to penetrate the soils relative to evapotranspiration. So there's a lot of fun things you can do on that side to create a better forecast. But then on the side where you're talking about packaging it, it's everything from a keyword-based SMS message that has repeat interactions with the farmer, and that builds trust. Every time I deliver a correct forecast for that farmer, especially if it's a nowcast product, it's going to rain really heavy in the next 3 hours, boom, when that hits, you start building trust that way. So repeat interactions, and then you can help with the behavior change, help increase yields, mitigate any of these kinds of dry spell, sporadic rain effects that we see due to climate change. So I think from there, it's matching who's the target farmer segment I'm trying to reach, what types of technologies do they have and that they're literate in, and then how do I deliver the content in a way that motivates and nudges behavior. So in some farmer segments, this is packaged with an input company like Value Seeds, OCP we've worked with in the past, and there it's around, we ask those same questions, but it's a matter of, is this in an app? Is it a short video? Is it a call center? We've provided our data for call centers for farmers that want to chat about it. So it's about being flexible with how you can convey the intelligence to maximize your reach in different farmer segments who absorb information in different ways. So that's really been our approach.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Let me turn over to Hello Tractor now. One of the metrics that Hanadi shared is what we call facilitated use. So this is farmers that are using a digital tool with the help of an agent. And when we did this study in Kenya, one of the surprising findings, I think, was that more than half of the farmers who are using digital tools were doing so with the help of an agent. The rate is lower in Nigeria. It was closer to a third of users had the help of an agent, but it's still significant. So Quinta, I wanted to turn to you. Hello Tractor has an agent-based model. Can you share a little bit more about your model, why you use agents, and how you see agents helping farmers with digital solutions? And sort of, do you see them playing a valuable role in Nigeria specifically in delivering digital services?
Thanks for the question, Ellie. I'll let Ufuoma respond to that one, just because she's based in Nigeria.
Thank you, Quinta. Thanks, Ellie, for the question. I would say to start with, just to give a brief overview of Hello Tractor and how we adopt the agent-based model. So Hello Tractor is an agricultural technology company. Basically, we leverage technology to connect smallholder farmers to mechanization services. And we achieve this through a mobile-based digital platform and a network of booking agents. So these booking agents are basically young people within the farming communities who go into the farmland, speak to the farmers about mechanization services, and aggregate that demand. So this demand is then paid through the digital platform through available tractors in the area. So in terms of how do agents benefit farmers, or how do we see this model being beneficial to farmers, I would like to reference the data in the report that states that I think about 64% of smallholder farmers access these digital services directly, or through phone calls and through text messages. And then in the same vein, just about 9% access this digitally or through WhatsApp. So what that tells us is there's a limit to the level of digital services that these farmers are able to access. Because by the time you introduce the slightest level of complexity, or in instances where smallholder farmers are required to input data to get a more tailored service delivery, then adoption significantly reduces. So this could be in instances where farmers are required to fill an online form, or they're required to sign up or register on the website, or in the instance of Hello Tractor, where for us to efficiently pair a farmer to a tractor, we do need to map the area of the farmland to ascertain the exact size and the exact terrain of the farmland. And so we see that this limits farmers' access to certain digital services due to low digital literacy. Right, a lot of these smallholder farmers, those of them who have phones use only feature phones as opposed to using smartphones. And that's where the agent-based model comes in. First of all, to lower that digital barrier, right? How are these farmers able to access these digital services, right? Even though they have low technology proficiency, they have low technology know-how. These agents are able to, speak to them about these services, onboard them, walk them through the user journey, and ensure that they are able to efficiently use this service and derive meaningful use from it. In addition to that, I would say another benefit that this agent provides to these farmers is increased awareness. So in the report, it was stated that a major barrier to DFS adoption among smallholder farmers is the lack of awareness, right? In a lot of these farming communities, these are rural, remote, off-grid areas. A lot of these farmers don't have access to mobile connectivity, right? They're in their farms 8, 9, 10 hours a day. And the only way they're going to hear about these services is through in-person interaction. So are they speaking to other farmers? Are they hearing this from their producer groups? Or do we have agents who are providing that last mile delivery, going to where these farmers are to tell them, oh, this is a service that is available to you, enumerating the benefits of the service and how they are able to access and benefit from it. I would say another benefit would be fostering trust. So Nigeria is inherently a low trust environment. And so it's important that we're able to broker that trust between the farmer and the digital service provider. And that's one area that agent model helps to do, right? Because you find farmers hard pressed to adopt a digital solution with little to no human touch point. But by deploying agents who are already residents in those communities, taking for example the Hello Tractor model, these agents are already residents within these farming communities. Some of them interact with these farmers on a day-to-day basis. They speak the local language. They're able to contextualize whatever digital service is being provided, or information being provided, able to contextualize it to the local context, and then being able to explain and properly distill that service to meet the pain points or the specific challenges that these farmers face. And in a nutshell, I would say the agents model is one that growing in Nigeria, particularly within the private sector. Across the agricultural value chain, we do have organizations such as Tribe Agric, Koamana, Agomo, Crop to Cash, who are also successfully deployed the agents model to deliver digital services to farmers. In areas of delivering training and good economic practices, inputs, financial services, and then also information and advisory services. And I would say currently like building for where we currently are within the Nigerian context, within taking into account the low technology adoption, low mobile penetration among smallholder farmers. I would say the agent model is one that has to go hand in hand, right, to ensure that we're able to scale adoption, right, for farmers who do not know how to use these digital platforms, and then also like accelerating. Yeah.
Thanks so much. I mean, it's so interesting that, I think part of the hypothesis around digital solutions is that they have this transformational potential for scale, right? And the ability to reach millions of farmers without requiring an in-person interaction. But then you see that, it's so powerful to add an agent to build that trust, to show them how to use it. So I wonder, just as a follow-up question, how does Hello Tractor think about scalability, and does the cost and logistics associated with the agent model limit the potential for scale at all?
Quinta, do you want to take that?
Sure. So when it comes to scalability, we've embedded our booking agents usually get a commission on all our bookings, right? And so that's a key motivator or incentive that we've put in place for the booking agent. But the goal really for scale is really for booking agents to also be able to build their individual independent networks, farmer networks within the community, as we really see them as champions within the community and leads across the ecosystems that we work with, we work in, right? And so when you're thinking about scale, I believe that as we build the booking agent network also builds their network of farmers. I think that ripple effect is very, impactful in terms of being able to scale. And so we've really ensured that we prioritize not only ensuring that they have everything that they need to succeed, but also double down in terms of ensuring that we equip them also with the learnings that they require as a booking agent. How do you thrive in terms of the delivery of service, and also being able to, present to the farmer the services that we are offering in a way that they really understand that we have their priorities at heart.
Awesome. Just one more question for you, Quinta or Ufuoma, whoever, or I guess maybe we lost her. So one of the other concepts that we mentioned in the research is bundled solutions, this idea of digital tools where a farmer might access multiple services from the same provider. So like information and inputs, or inputs and credit. And in Nigeria, we found, very few farmers are getting the digital services as part of a bundle. Do you think that there's value in offering or promoting bundled services as part of the digital service to farmers? And how are you thinking about bundling?
Yes, we definitely do. And what we've done is each service that we offer has a feature within our app. And so as the booking agents are booking services from the farmer, they have a full loop or a full suite of services that they can select, right? And so as the booking agent is guiding them, that diversification also guides Hello Tractors. We think through what additional extension services that we'd like to incorporate for farmers, right? We think about things that can increase their productivity as an example. We think about profit as well. We think about cost savings. And so as we think through the independent features that we can have for that, storage being one of them, drone services being another, we really ensure that during that process, we incorporate feedback from the farmer so that as we're diversifying, we're also tying that to the priorities. I think the other thing that does is it opens up opportunities to collaborate with market actors, really thinking through what are the cross-selling opportunities, what synergies exist, and how can we sort of leverage each other's audiences in terms of not just thinking about collaboration, but also competition, and ensuring that everyone has, the ability to access different audiences. Again, there's a big, aspect of being very prescriptive. Again, farmers are very intentional around, not just what they would like to benefit from the full harvest cycle in terms of the yield, but also more importantly, the process around, things like soil testing. How does that benefit them? How does that then translate into the crop quality, right? And so as we leverage the digitized agents, it's very important that farmers also really understand the benefits across the cycle, right? As Hanadi presented, there's a big drop at post planting to harvesting to selling, right? So as you diversify and you bring in new solutions that benefit the farmer, and they're able to really see the value. If they used your service, for example, at the planting and then go on to sell their yield through you, we found that trust and confidence is really built with the farmer. Our last case, actually in Kenya, we were able to support our farmers to get up to 55% in profits. And that was a really, really, really remarkable experience, not just for the farmers, but also for the booking agents in terms of really being intentional around, supporting the farmers, not just at the end, but also right from the beginning, each stage, understanding how the solutions that we offer also support the farmers to really thrive. The last one I would say is, again, just really tying to cost savings and bundled services using leveraging platforms from market access. I think it's very important for us to take a collaborative approach. I think a lot of the challenges that have been presented, not just from the study, but also that Andrew has touched on, are really, core towards us being able to bring together the solutions that we offer and, utilize our platforms to also be able to offer these services to the farmers collectively.
Great, thank you. So we have about 10 minutes left for audience Q&A. So everyone, if you have questions and you haven't put them into the Q&A box yet, please do that. I'm going to start with Hanadi with some questions about the study. First, can you mention any names of the market access DFS that were mentioned? I'm not sure if we captured those, but to the extent that we know anything about them, can you share them? And then a little bit more about what we learned in terms of pricing of the services, given that affordability was mentioned as a barrier to use.
Yeah, the first one is a quick answer. So no, we did not collect specific names of the services. We did trial that actually in the first round of data collection just to see if we could get kind of accurate data. And I think that there is something that is like well known in the sector is there's like a recall or a name recognition issue. And so it's difficult for farmers they know that they've used a service, they know it's a digital service, they know what the service offered, but the name of the service is usually tied to if there's the agent that they used, or for example, Hello Tractor, I think you guys are like the orange shirt company or some, there's like different names that farmers use. And so we don't have that information. The second is around the pricing model. So actually, this is a trend that we also saw in Kenya, which we found really interesting, is that we see more than half of the farmers that are using some of these services. So I'm going to use information DFS because that's the biggest type of service that's being used. Most farmers are not actually paying for these services. So, and we didn't see any kind of issues around affordability for the farmers that are paying for the services. They're not saying that the prices are too high, yet it is a big barrier for usage. And so there's a perception issue where farmers believe that some of these services are like too highly costed for them to adopt, but in reality, for the farmers that are using, many of them are not actually paying for the services or not having issues with payment. So I think this was like an interesting finding that we've seen kind of consistently across both geographies. For the other services, we didn't see any big kind of affordability problems, but also usage was much lower. And so I wouldn't, it was more kind of directional. Don't want to comment on kind of like market access inputs, things like that. I think that answers both, hopefully, Ellie.
Yeah, let me give you one more that was submitted in the registration, which is, do we have any information on how farmers' engagement with weather advisory, or let's just say all advisory, varies by farm size?
So we didn't look directly at farm size, so the types of information that farmers were receiving. We looked at kind of the commercialization metric that we created. And so one of the things that we wanted to understand is, do we have in this study kind of a short way that we can understand commercialization of farmers without kind of a 25-question survey? Can we do something quickly to understand where we are able to kind of segment based on things beyond farm size? And so there's more details on how we actually did that measurement again on the microsite. And so we looked at, we didn't actually see any differences in terms of like the type of information accessed, because there wasn't enough variation in the types of information accessed by farmers. Most of the information that they were receiving was crop management and input recommendations. And so we didn't see kind of trends by land size or
Okay.
yeah.
And as a follow-up, I'm going to give this one to Andrew, since I know that we don't have the answer to it. Have you seen engagement with weather advisory specifically? How does it vary across the wet season and the dry season, and has that changed in recent years? So are farmers more likely to engage during the rainy season, and is that changing?
Yeah, I mean, just to build off of what was said, it's less about farm size and more about like technology adoption among early adopters. And there's probably some psychometric, you know, whose openness to try a digital service to influence their behavior. I think, you know, in general, humans are very bad at acting on forecasts. And so there's probably some more research here about saying who's been hit with an extreme weather event, and does that encourage more openness to seeking out solutions. I see this with commodity traders. I see it with logistics agents. I see it with farms of all sizes. Unfortunately, just saying we have shifting rainy season or an El Nino effect here, La Nina here, we're going to have crazy Harmattan winds here. It's just a human behavioral psychology problem. Ultimately, the extremes are going to hit, and people will need to adopt these types of solutions as a demand generation. That's what I see. But less so about the categorization of, okay, if they have 2 hectares versus 5 versus 100. It's, have they experienced extreme weather that has affected their profitability, their yield, and have they seen the pest pressures that we see?
Great. I'm going to give this one to anyone who wants to answer it. So are there hidden barriers to digital farmer services demand in Nigeria? So we've talked a lot about the barriers that we asked about in the survey, but are there other barriers to farmers using digital solutions that we may not have captured?
I think a big one is language as well. For the surveys that we've run in Nigeria in partnership with 60 Decibels, we've typically had to run them through at least minimum 3 languages. And so with that in mind, I think in terms of being able to deliver information that is not just insightful to the farmers, but is palatable to them, it's very key to be able to diversify the languages as well.
Andrew, how many languages are you disseminating messages in Nigeria, do you know, offhand?
Offhand, probably 3 of the predominant ones. And then, of course, with AI and the ability to develop much more conversational advisory is only going to accelerate that. So through a lot of interactions and more data to feed the LLM machines. So yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how it explodes in the next couple years, well, months or years.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and something that we are thinking about as well, as we work in, I think, 90 languages or more than that. Amazing. Well, we have just a couple of minutes left. I want to thank everyone for joining and for all the speakers' participation, and just ask if anyone has any closing thoughts or final questions or comments that they'd like to make before we wrap up. Awesome. Well, I will just remind everyone that this was a quick snapshot of a very lengthy study that we did in Nigeria, and the full report, and even more than the report, a full data dashboard is available at our website. at busara.60decibels.com. We're going to share it with you. If you have any follow-up questions, please do reach out to me or to Hanadi or to any of the speakers if the question is relevant to them. We would love to keep engaging on this, and we would really love for this data to get into the hands of people who can use it, people who are making decisions about how to scale digital solutions in Nigeria. And as I mentioned in the beginning, this was a pilot. We wanted to sort of develop a way to capture these population level metrics, and we learned so much, and we've captured a lot of learnings in doing so. But our hope really is that through population level research in the future with farmers, we can add on some of these digital engagement metrics so that we have that sort of complementary view of a digital ecosystem in a country, right? We're not relying on that supply side data, which, as we've just talked about, can be really misleading about an ecosystem. We want to have as much demand side data as we can to make these decisions. So we're really excited to see where this goes, and we welcome further engagement and all the metrics and all the methodologies available online. So if anyone wants to do a similar study, the resources are there for you. So please feel free to reach out, check it out, send us your questions after the webinar. But thank you again to all of our panelists for joining, and to everyone who took the time to join today. We really appreciate it. Have a good day. Thanks, everyone.